name is Ryan Zadkovic. I had to change that up, Clinton, since you are no longer a permanent co-host on this show. We are talking the Mid-American Conference some action tonight, and we are pleased to once again welcome back to the show Alex Scheer of the Max Sports Connection podcast, who help us break down the most exciting conference in college football. That much is undebatable. Where else are you going to get your midweek November games when you just need something on the television and you need something entertaining to watch? Only in the middle of America, folks. Alex, sir, thank you so much for joining us tonight, man. How are you doing tonight?
Doing well. Like I said, always great to kind of join you guys, be part of this, and you guys do an excellent job with all of your college football stuff. So happy to be part of this and to be here for something special.
Clinton, how do you feel going back to our roots tonight?
Sweaty.
That's not the answer I was looking for.
I'm just sweaty, man. I've been running since I got off of work. Like I told you before show, it's nice to sit down in a cool house. Maybe I'll stop perspiring at some point during the show, but I'm excited, man. I love the Mac. I'm excited to see what the Bobcats can offer. Again, prepping for this preview, even just looking at schedules, and we'll kind of get into these questions here. But Buffalo's got a fun opener with Minnesota. OU's got a great fun 3 straight. See if they can make some magic happen. Miami's got a fun opener. There's a lot going on in the MAC this year. That's from new coaches to old coaches to players returning to so many players gone. And Alex is going to be here to deliver us some great information tonight. Alex, I did have one big question before we started, but what were the rumors of OU to the Sun Belt a infatuation, or was there actual truth to that?
So I believe we are living in an era where people do a lot of take something from a message board and run with it.
That sounds about right.
Yep.
And so I think, and I tried to be a little bit more cautious with that information, because I got tripped up when Northern Illinois started making their departure towards the Mountain West, and I, based off the information I had, reported that Northern Illinois would not be making that move. Looked like that was holding true. Brett McMurphy came out and said interest has waned, and then about 2 months later, boom, they're making the move. So I was trying to be a little bit more cautious in my reporting on that. I think it's very safe to say there is interest from the side of the Sun Belt teams, specifically Marshall fans.
Okay.
And for good reason. That'd be a great geographically close program. I think it's like under 2 hours from Athens to Huntington.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that would be a great move for Marshall to have a regionally close opponent. For Ohio, it doesn't make sense. Right now, contractually, the Sun Belt media deal runs through 2031. They make even less than MAC schools do off of their television media rights. Now, they get different dividends paid off through different things, through NCAA tournament, the college football playoff distributions. So those come differently. But I think that would have been a move that would have been a really hard one to understand. Northern Illinois, I still have a hard time understanding it. There's supposedly up to $4.5 million of a media deal that's coming. I don't know how true that is, but that makes sense. There's dollars there.
Mm-hmm.
The MAC media deal expires in 27. There's rumors that it could be anywhere from 1.5 to 2.5 million a school when they renew it. And then the Sun Belt media deal is less than the $750,000 each MAC school gets.
Wow.
And that's going on till 2031. So the numbers don't make sense. And also, and I broke this down. I've got a sheet somewhere on my Google Drive. If Ohio were to do that, they would have multiple opponents over 1,000 miles away.
Jesus.
Right now, their closest 1,000-mile opponent is UMass.
Okay.
I think Northern Illinois was something like 500 miles, and I'd have to pull up the Google Doc again and find all that. But it's not one of those things where this is. Again, this wasn't a feasible move, and I get fans are excited. I think it was actually Herd Bros who's been really pushing that the most. Love that guy. But there's been, from everything I've gathered from people I've talked to, there has been very little real sustainable interest on that front from the Ohio side. I think there was a conversation that happened at some point somewhere. Wasn't really a, hey, we're interested in making this happen. It was more of a, hey, what does this look like? So
Okay, good. My heart can be relaxed now.
I can
I'm
tell you,
happy.
I did pull up. I just pulled up the sheet right now. The average distance from Ohio to a MAC school is roughly 295 miles. The average distance from Ohio to Sunbelt schools, 602 miles. So the average drive time literally doubles. The median distance is 560 miles for Sunbelt, 218 for the MAC. And then the total drive time, or total distance, for the MAC, 3,249 miles to every school. For the Sun Belt, 7,827 miles. Longest trip is 1,507 miles to, or 1,057 miles to Louisiana Lafayette, which is a 16-hour drive.
Oh my God.
The longest trip to a MAC school is Amherst, Massachusetts, 726 miles. The Sun Belt would have the closest trip with Huntington at 81 miles, so an hour and 40 minutes. Whereas the closest trip for Ohio right now is 160 to Akron, which is just under 3 hours. It just doesn't make sense.
Yeah,
you trade the rest of that regionality for one sub 2 hour drive. The math doesn't math to me.
Yep, I agree. Absolutely. All right, that's what I wanted to start off with. And Ryan, we didn't talk this pre-show, and you've done a phenomenal job going in and putting a little plug in post-show. But I think we'd be doing Alex a disservice if you have the sound available after I do our little plug, if we could let him hear the sound that you created for this preview. So, guys, as always, you can find us on the socials, Instagram and X, ITPCFB. If you want to catch us live, right now it's kind of variable given on when our guests can be available to match us. But in season, we're either going to be, we'll finalize and let you know, Saturday night or Sunday night to review the games from the weekend. Monday night in our Pick'em show, which was our most popular last year, on Thursday nights. We encourage you to come have a Thirsty Thursday with us on those if you choose to do so. You can have water if you don't have a beer. But if you want to find us on YouTube, just also search ITP CFB. Make sure you like and subscribe the show there. And then if you want to find us on your preferred podcast platform, just search Inside the Pylon, a Midwest College Football podcast. Please follow and leave us a 5-star review so we can help grow the show.
Hey, those mountains blue?
It's Inside the Pylon 6-pack of questions.
Clem, I have a trivia question for you.
What is that?
How many road games do the Bobcats play in the state of Ohio in 2025?
I should know because I just looked at the schedule. Well, they got Ohio State.
I'll save you the brain power. That's the
5.
only one. That's
Okay.
the only one. They
Okay.
do not play another Ohio team on the road in 2025.
I didn't know well enough. And that's going to probably be the ugliest one of them all. But when they go on the trip to Piscataway and then they host WVU, I'm telling you, starting 2-0. 2-0 Bobcats.
I really wish their game at Eastern was on a weeknight because I would totally go to that game.
I wish the damn game against West Virginia baseline ticket price right now was not $160.
That's insane.
I love OU and I love MAC football. And this sounds horrible to say. I'm not paying $160 to go do that. I was planning maybe like 50, 60. My buddy told me you can buy season tickets for $60.
Mm-hmm.
Let's pay $100 more for one game.
So West Virginia fans have actually been doing that. They've been buying season ticket packages to guarantee that they get that game.
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
it's a little bit cheaper. Makes sense.
Absolutely.
Peden's going to be very blue and gold for that game.
Yeah, unfortunately. I don't know. Hopefully the green can show up. I don't know. Maybe OU would do something a little special uniform
They're going to
thing.
paint it
but
green and white. I'm not worried about it. They've lost one game on Frank Solich Field the last 3 years.
Yeah.
Not too worried about
Time
it.
to cook. Down with the Mountaineers,
Time
baby.
to cook.
All right, man. thank you again so much for joining us tonight. We really appreciate you jumping back on the show a second time amidst all the busy stuff that you do. But let's dive into the questions here. I'm going to start us off with question 1 tonight. As I kind of mentioned early in the show, coaches, right? That's where we're going to lead off tonight. 3-part first question. Let's start with the first part of the first question. In the MAC, what coaches do you think could be on the hot seat for 2025?
So I wrote out all my answers. So I've got them on this other screen here, just so you guys aren't thinking I'm not looking at you. But I think there's really, truly only one coach that's on the hot seat. And I'll give my explanation here. And I think that's Joe Moorhead. Joe Moorhead, when he took over, they went 2-10. Last year they went 4-8, won 3 of their last 5 games, beat Toledo, who went on to beat Pitt in the bowl game. So you're thinking, hey, this team's on the rise. Then they get hit with the APR stuff, which, fair or unfair, the NCAA said, hey, this is what's up. I think to the folks that say this is relatively unfair, I think you have to look at the metric because it goes back multiple years. It's not just a single year, and they're like, hey, 5 years later, this is the issue. No, it's a multi-year thing. And Akron's scores just kept getting worse. So it's not a single year thing, but this is also something Joe Moorhead dealt with when he was at Mississippi State. This isn't new to Joe Moorhead. And I love the guy. I've been high on the guy since he came to Akron. He was at Akron back in 2005 when they won the MAC championship. He's the offensive coordinator. This is a guy who I think could do some great things at Akron. They just keep getting in their own way. So I think he's on the hot seat. Yes, he's not going to be eligible for a postseason, but I think anything under 6 wins, and you're going to be hard-pressed to get there this year, puts him really, really in danger of being let go. And I think the other one you can talk about is Mark Carney. And I had a great conversation with Mark Carney at MAC Media Day. I don't think it's fair to say that he's on the hot seat. He's in an impossible situation. He's the interim head coach, where if he doesn't win, he probably loses the job. If he wins 4 games, he probably loses the job if he doesn't beat Akron. It sounds like the university pretty non-committal to keeping him, which is why they named him long-term interim coach. If there were plans to keep him as the coach, they would have just done it. So and some people have to keep in mind, he was Kenny Burns' offensive coordinator, which I know Kenny Burns had control of the program, but this is a Mark Carney offense and a Mark Carney team now being run by the guy who ran the Mark Carney offense. I really like Coach Carney. I would love nothing more than to see Kent State go 8-4. That'd be huge. I don't see it happening. So I think the writing's on the wall, and he's just gonna, hey, we're gonna play football, and we're gonna try to be as competitive as can be. The writing's on the wall, so I don't think he's a fair one to kind of point at. I think the truly the only one is Joe Moorhead.
Absolutely. Ryan, do you want to hit the next portion?
Yeah, so kind of going into the new coaches, right? And I think part of playing off of why there's maybe so few coaches on the hot seat is because half the conference almost has new head coaches. Looking at the, I don't know what a fancy word for 6 is. I was going to sextuplet. I don't think that's actually the right word. Looking at the 6 new head coaches in the MAC, and I guess that we'll throw Mark Carney into here too. Who do you think is best set up for success, not just in 2025, but over the next couple of seasons?
Well, I think the best coach out of that sextet is going to.
There
that's
it is.
The word you're looking
Sextet, baller, love it.
Is I think there's a lot of variables involved. You get Eddie George, who an NFL legend, an Ohio State legend, a state of Ohio legend, who can use his NFL pedigree to bring recruits to Northwest Ohio. Can he win? Is the next question. He started turning around Tennessee State, got them to the playoffs, got them a conference championship. But there is still that transition period from FCS to FBS. Can he sustain long enough and win at a slow enough rate? And I know that sounds crazy. Can he win at a slow enough rate that he can have time to build a program? You look at Scott Loeffler took over in 2019. And he was there for 6 years. He had time to build the program. They weren't winning big. They were winning slowly. They were getting a few P5 wins, but he was able to really build the program. Eddie George goes out and he's successful in year 1 and 2. He's getting called away. And not necessarily because of his coaching prowess, although I think he's going to be a quality coach. It's going to be because he's Eddie George. And Eddie George does what? Gets fans to buy tickets, gets people interested in the program. There's a lot of buzz about Bowling Green because of who? Eddie George. So I think that one is one. If he wins slow enough, I think he's one of the ones that's most successful or set up successfully. But I think you got to look at Brian Smith and you got to look at Matt Drinkle. I am stupid high on Matt Drinkle. Even though we have differing opinions on what video game is the best of all time, he is one of those guys that I think has a heart for football, and he's serious about what he wants to do. 3 words for you guys. Joe Moore Award. He won that last year at Army as the offensive line coach. He's going to bring that military academy discipline with him, something that Central Michigan has sorely lacked in recent years. And that is no disrespect to Jim McEwen. Love that guy. But I think you're getting a new era of college football out of Matthew Drinkle, and it's going to be very hard-nosed, we're going to run it 100 times a game. Our offensive line is going to kick the crap out of your defensive line, and you're going to win a bunch of gritty football games. And I think that's attractive at a MAC program where points are either at a premium or they're, Oprah, you get points. But I think that a Matt Drinkle offense is going to be really, really fun to watch. It's not going to be exciting. It's going to be 3 yards in a cloud of dust. And I think for the old school football guys, that's going to be a lot of fun. So I'd say it's probably those two. You've got Mike Urimovich over at Ball State, year 101 of Ball State football, so the new century of Cardinal football. And I think there's something to be excited about there. He had some success at Butler, did a great job turning that program around. But I think for my money right now, it's going to be Eddie George. If he can win slow enough, there's something to be built there. And then Matthew Drinkle up at Central Michigan.
Excellent. And then we flip that kind of to the essential top coaches of the MAC. Jason Candle, Chuck Martin, tons of success, great runs. They're extremely proven. If you had to give the edge to who the best coach of those two is in the MAC going into 2025 season, who would you give the edge to? And I know Toledo's in your heart, right? So
It is. And Ohio's also in my heart, so it's like there's like this an inherent overall bias against Miami. It's built into me. I think when you look at it, Jason Candle inherited a great program in great shape. Part of the reason why he's 73-37. Chuck Martin inherited an incredibly bad program. One of the worst eras of Miami football when Chuck Martin inherited the program. Chuck Martin has gotten them back to, and what's crazy is both of these guys have been in the league almost the same amount of time. Chuck Martin, I think, took over in 2014, so he's like a year longer as a head coach in the league. But this is very much, for me, it's very much a toss-up. I think overall Candle gets a slight edge because he's been able to maintain what he took over. Some guys, they kind of go up and then they come crashing down. Jason Candle's kind of taken it, maintained it, and then slowly improved it. So I think for my money, my edge is a little bit to Jason Candle. He's also 2-1 against Chuck Martin, if that matters to anybody. Lost the most important game in that 3-game series, but he is 2-1 against Chuck Martin. To Chuck Martin's credit, consistently runs out the best defense in the Mid-American Conference. Constantly talked about as a MAC favorite. After rebuilding Miami from absolute nothing. First coach to beat Cincinnati in 15 years. So there's something about that. But I think just because of what Candle's been able to maintain and then improve on, I gotta give the slight, ever so slight edge to Jason Candle.
Absolutely.
Well, I want
I
to
feel like that was unbiased enough, right? Like I
Yeah,
feel like
that's
that
fair.
was-
Absolutely.
Yeah, you listen. You revealed your disclosures, and then you did thoughtfully explaining. So yes, we are aware of your biases, and I don't think it clouded your judgment with that. But I wanted to kind of parlay your comment about Chuck Martin's defense into the next question. That's just kind of discussing the contender tier in 2025 for the MAC. It seems like we have these four teams at the top with Buffalo, Toledo, Miami, and Ohio, and you kind of look at what the strengths of these teams are, right? Like looking at Bill Connolly's SP plus, like those are the four teams that are topping it. And you look at what teams are bringing back. You know, Toledo and Buffalo are up there on the strength of their returning production, with Toledo ranking 34th in the country, Buffalo ranking 50th. Ohio, the continuity at offense with Parker Navarro coming back, with Brian Smith, even though he's a new head coach, being in the system last year. You know, not as much returning production there. They were hit hard by the portal again. And Miami's a team that overall does not return a lot on offense, but they do bring in DeQuan Finn, former MAC Offensive Player of the Year, but they return a ton on defense. And per Bill Connolly's SP plus, he has them as one of the better defenses in the country, 35th in the nation. So there's a lot to like about all of these teams. But when you look at kind of that contender tier, we'll call it quote unquote as a whole, what are a couple of components of each? And I don't care how we break this down, whether it be, you know, if you want to go who you think is going to be tops and then work down from there, if you want to go alphabetically, however you want to kind of sequence that. But a couple of components of each of these teams that you like, that you think them makes them a contender for the MAC this year.
Well, I've got four teams who I think are really my contenders: Buffalo, Toledo, Miami, and Ohio. Those are my four that I think are all contenders. And by the way, all those schools won 8+ games last year. So one, there's something to build off of for all of them. And if you're Toledo and Miami, 8-win seasons was not good enough. Miami went 8-5, I believe, a year ago. 8-6. Toledo went 8-5. Like these aren't good enough seasons for these programs. Ohio finished 11-3, their third straight 10+ win season. Buffalo bounced back after not being in a bowl game last year, won 9 games. There are a lot of really, really good things here. Buffalo is returning a lot of talent on the defensive side of the ball. We'll get into some of the player stuff here later. Red Murdoch is a name everybody, their brother, sister, dog, uncle, their cat, their goldfish needs to know. And I say that with a bit of caution. This is his opportunity to break out and not be in the quote-unquote shadow of Sean Dolac. I don't know that he was really in the shadow. I think he played an incredible complementary role. These two are the top 2 tacklers in the conference at one point. Like this was a really, really great, stout defensive tandem. Now he gets to do it by himself. He's got other great pieces around him. I really think Buffalo is going to have a really good defense. On the offensive side, though, Al J. Henderson, 1,000-yard rusher a year ago, on something like 204 touches. I think it was 1,057 yards is what he ran. 204 touches. This is a guy who I know could really have an impactful year if Buffalo's offensive line stays healthy. The depth on the offensive line is going to be arguably their biggest issue. The quarterback room, I think it's Taquan Robertson is kind of the presumed starter. We haven't seen anything official yet, of course, but it's either him or Gunnar Gray who are going to start. And I think that this gets really exciting because there's some talent there, but can this offensive line keep healthy? Do you want me to move on to my next one? Do you guys want to add points?
I was just going to make a comment about Buffalo last year, 35.3 points per game in MAC contests.
Yeah.
So that is a higher-powered offense with similar teams. And then you've also got Nick McMillan and Victor Snow, your 1-2 punch at receiver that should pair well. Let's say Roberson is the presumed starter here to help teams not be able to just focus on the run game. But again, you mentioned it. It looks like they've got 3 starters back along the line, but you mentioned the depth, and it's a long season. if they push into a MAC title run in a bowl game, to be able to, if your depth's shallow, to keep the line and the trenches healthy. And then back to the defense, they were number 6. You mentioned the pass defense with Murdoch, number 6 in the MAC in pass efficiency. Efficiency. Get your words right, Clinton. Pass efficiency defense last year, and then I believe was it Kobe Stewart took a brief stint in the portal, and then came back. 12 TFLs in 2024. So that's really important. Now that's not a Khalil Mack, but that is an important piece when you're going against these other teams with a quarterback like Navarro and a quarterback like Finn. And it just so happens Buffalo draws Miami and OU at home this season. So you get 2 of your toughest matchups in your own building. I love my Bobcats, but I'm pretty high on the Bulls right now with the MAC in line for 2025.
Fair enough.
Ryan, any thoughts on the
No,
Bulls?
yeah,
Almost said the Bills.
Buffalo Bills. Yes,
NFL mind.
Yes, Josh Allen is really good. No, let's move on to the next team here.
Yeah, so I guess just moving down the list, and I'm kind of going ABC order, but kind of really who I think my top contenders are, and then just going down that list. I think Toledo, and again, a little bit of the homer bias. I recognize that, but I want to point out the last 2 years preseason, I have accurately predicted who would be in the MAC championship and then who would win the MAC championship.
Go Bobcats!
And everybody's like, "Oh, you've got a homer bias." Because of Toledo 2 years ago, and I said no, they were going to lose. And then last year I said Ohio was going to win, and they're like, "Oh, you've got your grad school bias." I was right on both of those, so take your bias and shove it, listeners. That being said, Tucker Gleason, Trayvon Rudolph, Junior Vandeross, the list goes on and on and on what this offense is going to be. And by the way, they're returning a bunch of offensive line talent. They bring in a great running back, Trip Chainham, who had a game-winning touchdown against Notre Dame a couple years ago.
Very familiar with him.
Shut up, Clinton.
Even Spooth is going to be an incredible part of this offensive line. Even Spoth, not Spooth, is going to be an incredible part of this offensive line. This is going to be a much better Toledo team. Defensively, Manuel McNeil Warren, Avery Smith, you've got a bunch of talent on the defensive side. And what's been crazy is Toledo has been sending defensive talent to the NFL. A league that's known for sending offensive talent to the NFL. Toledo's been sending defensive talent to the NFL. And I think there's value to have, when you're in a league that's so known for its offense, when you're able to say we have incredible defensive players that we send one in the first round of the draft 2 years ago, one is the first pick of the draft last year, almost went in the second round. Toledo is one of, I think it's the only G5 school that had a top 65 pick in the last 2 NFL drafts. There's a lot of value to that, and you're bringing in more defensive talent. Now, I think that there's going to be a little bit of a struggle on the defensive line, but I'm not that worried about it, if I'm being honest. I think you've got a solid linebacking core. You've got a great secondary. The secondary is going to be just as good as it's been the last couple of years. You just are replacing Quinyon Mitchell with Avery Smith or, again, Emmanuel McNeil Warren. These are guys that it's not we have to replace them. It's, okay, next man up. And that's something Jason Candle's done so well. And really credit to Vince Karras, the former Mount Union coach, who's come in, taken this defensive coordinator job, and said, we're going to make this one of the best defenses consistently in the MAC. And they've ranked top 3 in yards per play the last 5 seasons under Vince Karras on the defensive side of the ball. There's value to that. Braden Alls is going to be another piece to this defense. This is a really, really, really good defense. They have the ability to contain a DeQuan Finn. In fact, I fully expect to see them give it everything to contain him because, one, some of these guys know how he plays, so they've practiced against him over and over and over again. Now there's another storyline to it. You know, you left us to go to Baylor, got hurt after winning the starting job, didn't win it back. Now you're coming back to try to win a championship at a different school. That's a huge storyline. That's a game that I can't wait to watch down in Oxford later this season. Toledo went 8-5 a year ago. They have a relatively favorable non-conference schedule this year. They avoid Ohio this year. They avoid Buffalo this year. I don't want to say Toledo got some breaks in the conference schedule, but you avoid two of the other three contenders that I have for this year. There's some value to that. You open on the road at Kentucky, who's returning something like 3 players or something. That program has just been eroding.
Stoops might be
Stoops
on the
might
way
be
out
gone.
after this year.
Yeah, like it could be gone after the Toledo game, depending on what happens.
I mean, they clipped Mississippi State pretty good last year.
They did. Which was, and I was talking to somebody earlier. Toledo went down and beat Mississippi State by 24. The week after, Tucker Gleason completed 8 passes against UMass. He threw 3 touchdowns against Mississippi State and no interceptions, and had something like 23 completions. Like, Tucker Gleason is going to have more help in the backfield. This is going to be a better offense. You get the NIU transfer Trayvon Rudolph as another threat.
Mm-hmm.
Like, this is going to be a really good offense. Yes, you lose the Jerron Newton, who's now fighting for a spot on the Denver Broncos. But you get a really good offensive line back, an offensive line that I think is going to gel this year, really gel this year. This is an offensive line where they didn't have any continuity whatsoever. Like, they patchwork that offensive line together. I really think this is going to be a really good Toledo team. But I guess we can kind of dive into Miami a little bit. I'll let you guys say what you want to say, but I've got plenty of thoughts on Miami too.
My thought to say is Chuck Martin looks like a out of shape older version of Rob Gronkowski in the picture I'm looking at. That's my comment to start. Okay. This picture, man, if I could pull it up for you guys, that smile and that hairline, he looks like Rob Gronkowski when he's going to be 60 or 70.
That's so funny.
Although Gronk might be a much taller human being. I don't know how tall Chuck Martin is.
Chuck Martin's a relatively tall guy.
Okay. Well, that's Rob Gronkowski in the future, guys. That was my thought on Miami. Shout out to you, Matt, when you listen to this tomorrow or whenever you listen to it. Your coach looks like Rob Gronkowski. Or Rob Gronkowski looks like your coach. I don't know how you played that out. Anyways, that's my tidbit.
That's messed up.
Take us away, Alex. You want to take us into the Red Hawks? Let's do it.
Rise up, Red Hawks. They've been doing some great things down in Oxford last couple of years. Title contender 2 of the last 3 seasons. It's been that trifecta of Ohio, Miami, and Toledo in the MAC championship the last 3 years. And funny enough, no repeats in that stretch, which feels kind of insane, but just speaks to the parity even at the top of the conference. DeQuan Finn, you can't deny that Finn is an electric athlete. He can scramble. He can just chuck it down the field. Miami lost a lot of offensive talent. You get what's the running back, Tracy. You get him back, which is fine. But I think the duo you have to look for is Deion Colsey, the Notre Dame transfer. Him and Finn. You get those guys cooking, that could be really, really dangerous. Colsey, I think is going to be a key cog in this. You're also moving to a kind of a different style offense. You've had the Brett Gabbert experience for what felt like 1,000 years. I think Chuck Martin coached at Miami longer with Brett Gabbert than he has without Brett Gabbert.
That's crazy.
Wow.
Like you think about it. I'm thinking about that now. Actually, I think Martin started in 2014. Gabbert started as a true freshman in 2019.
Yep.
And then finally wrapped up his career last year. So, yeah. When you think about that, that's just insane. So he's had Brett Gabbert for so long. But I think you're gonna look at this offense, and it's gonna be a new look offense. DeQuan Finn is a little injury prone. It's the reason he didn't win that starting job back at Baylor. It's why in 2022 when Toledo went 7-5 and won the MAC, he got hurt against Buffalo earlier in the year, and Tucker Gleason had to come in and then got hurt again. There's that concern for Miami. But there's that concern when you have a dual threat quarterback, a guy who can run, a guy who can throw. Miami's offensive line is going to have to give Finn time to find Colsey, to find some of these other pieces. But I think on the defensive side, Corbin Hondrew, Eli Blakey, these are guys. Adam Trick. I'm really excited about Adam Trick. One, because I mean, how fun of a name is that for a defensive end, Adam Trick. But you do lose Brian Uglu. Like that's a huge loss. Nasir Washington's got to step up. Like this is going to be a much different defense, but there's still a lot of talent from championship team runs on this side of the ball, and it's Chuck Martin. He never has a bad defense. Occasionally he'll get burned, but very rarely will you see his defenses give up massive plays. So I think you're looking at a Miami team that, when all these guys kind of combined, there's a lot of talent, but then there's on the defensive side, but offensively there's a lot of question marks. And it's going to be how far can the defense carry them until the offense figures it out. And if the offense doesn't figure it out, I think that's where Miami's in trouble, because there's not really anybody behind Daquan Finn right now.
Gotcha. Interesting.
I just want to say Deion Colsey have a big year because he's a very good, self-aware dude, and I think it was the 2023 season. I don't remember when he hurt his knee. I think it was sometime in mid-September, and he had a bad setback, and it sounded like it was going to be just kind of like a 6-week thing, and he ended up missing almost the entire season, and that just kind of threw his entire Notre Dame career off the tracks. But
Yeah.
I'm hoping now that he has a chance to actually be a go-to guy, I would like to see him show out this year.
No, I love it. I guess we'll just kind of dive into Ohio real quick.
Mm-hmm.
You won your first championship in 56 years. An incredible streak broken. Kent State is now the longest team without a title, dating back to the 70s. 72, actually. Nick Saban was on that team. Jack Lambert was on that team. Gary Pinkel was on that team. A little bit of a MAC history for you guys.
I heard Saban's coming back to coach Kent State after this year. Is that what he's doing?
That rumor is about as strong as the Ohio to the SBC rumor. Which is, funny enough, similar to the rumor that I'm going to be MAC commissioner next year. It's a whole thing. I really like that Ohio has a lot of talent coming back. They're losing a lot of big pieces. But you keep Brian Smith, who orchestrated the Parker Navarro offense last year. Parker Navarro did something the Rourke brothers couldn't do. And that was win a MAC championship. He's a true dual threat. Coleman Owen. And then I like the offensive line, the all-MAC offensive lineman, Caden Houghton, coming back. Those are going to be huge anchors to this offensive side of the ball. And then Navarro, he can run. He had a bunch of runs last year. I think 14 or 15 runs of 20-plus yards a year ago, where he could just go. Brian Smith, he's retaining some of that offensive coordinator mindset, so there's not going to be much of a change to the playbook, which that's a huge positive when you're retaining your all-conference quarterback. But then you're gonna be losing a bunch of defensive guys, and you got to figure out, what do we do on the defensive side of the ball. I'm not confident that they are going to be. I'm not confident that they're the lowest necessarily in my contender kind of order, but you got to learn how to play football real quick. You got games against Rutgers, West Virginia, Ohio State, all to get your season going. That's a tough stretch. I love that West Virginia's shout out to West Virginia. I love that West Virginia is coming to Peden Stadium. I know it's going to be a lot of blue and gold in there. And I get that. But it's so rare for a P4 program to travel to a Group of 5 program. You look at Missouri last year; they traveled to UMass. Kentucky was supposed to travel to, I believe, Akron a year ago. Bought that game out. A little known fact for people. And that's why Akron played Ohio State last year.
Okay.
I have so much respect for West Virginia and Rich Rod for doing that. I mean, I know that was a decision made before Rich Rod took back over, but I have so much respect for them doing that. So just shout out to the Mountaineers for being willing to make that trip, because it does two things. You win that game on the road. It's like, hey, look, we can beat Group of Five on the road. We're not afraid to play them at their place. You lose that game on the road. That's huge for the Group of Five, but it also shows, hey, we lost that game. We still played it at their place, and that shows you just how tough some of these environments are. It's truly a win for the Group of Five, I think, more than it is the Power Four. Even if West Virginia comes in and wins that game, I think it's still a win for the Group of Five because it's, hey, we put on a quality product that they said we're willing to come be part of that at your place.
Love it.
Now, I know there's stuff with contracts and it's like 2-for-1s and things. I don't care. How many times has Ohio State traveled to any of these MAC stadiums?
They never will.
How many times has Michigan done it, right? They never will. Until all these MAC schools are in the Big Ten and they have to. But that's why I have so much respect for schools like West Virginia, Missouri, for making these trips, because you don't have to. And you have the money where you can say, hey, you come play here, we'll give you $1 million. You can absolutely do that. But no, you're willing to say, no, we're gonna show what we can do. We're gonna go do it at your place, and we're gonna put ourselves in an uncomfortable situation.
Mm-hmm.
We're gonna, tinier locker rooms, different so just mad respect for West Virginia, because again, you don't have to do this, but you're doing it. But I think in true order, contenders are Toledo, Buffalo, and then Miami and Ohio. Those are my top four. I think it's probably, it's football. Anything can happen, but I think when you look at it, those are easily the top four in this conference right now.
Certainly. And then when we kind of branch out of that first tier, we're looking at the second tier of teams from MAC. It seems to be really tricky to kind of put a finger on them, given the amount of attrition and coaching changes that need to be accounted for between these guys. Mm-hmm. And what we've been reading, and I did a lot of my setting up through Athlon and BG, NIU, Central Michigan, Western Michigan, Eastern Michigan. You get all the directional Michigans there. They seem to be the ones who kind of fit into this tier. Which team or teams from this group have you most intrigued for 2025? And should, or I guess could, any of one of these teams rise up to be in that next tier?
I think if you're going to say any team could rise up, probably Northern Illinois.
Boo! I don't want them to. They're leaving.
And that's exactly the reason why I think they will, or at least could. This is a team that's going to be playing with a little bit of a chip on their shoulders. A chip kind of put there by fan bases, by multiple fan bases, whether it be their own or whether it be opposing fan bases. And I've been pretty clear on this since day one. I don't think, if you're a MAC fan, I get it. You can be upset that Northern Illinois is leaving. I have no problem with that. I genuinely, I don't like it either. But I've just seen a lot of just malice online towards NIU fans, towards the team. Like, NIU player just transferred out after being in the portal for 3 days this week to Rutgers. And, we can have our opinions on what tampering looks like. But people are like, oh, good, I hope they crash and burn. And it's like, no, that's not, like, them leaving was not a decision made by fans, although many fans were excited about it. This decision was not made by the athletes, and frankly, probably not much of a say by the coaches. Probably a little bit, but this decision was looked at from higher up by the athletic director, Sean Frazier, by the president of the university. This was not a decision which, Josh Holst said, hey, I will continue to play football at Northern Illinois if we go to the Mountain West. He had no say in that. None of these players did. None of the fans did. And I think people need to realize this was not, you can be as upset as you want to be, but let's keep the trash talking to, oh, we're gonna beat you when you come play us this year. Let's keep it there. Let's keep it at a more even keel. Don't talk about, man, I hope you all implode just because you're abandoning us. Abandoning the MAC or not, I don't care. I wish Northern Illinois would stay. I think football wise, they bring a lot of value to the conference. I mean, that win over Notre Dame last year speaks volumes. Says, hey, this is a MAC program. We do it with these resources compared to Notre Dame's. And by the way, we did it at your place. Toledo, Mississippi State last year. We did it with these resources and we did it at your place. To me, it just doesn't make sense to cause a lot of issues. That being said, Northern Illinois, I absolutely think could be in that tier of contenders. They constantly crank out a good defense. You guys have seen it. The offense is their massive.
Brian firsthand has seen it last year.
Okay.
Okay.
Not directly firsthand, through a television, but
Fair enough. Offense is going to be their big question mark. And I think depth is going to be an issue. But that defense can keep them in a lot of games. I mean, we saw what was a high-powered Toledo team that dropped 41 on Mississippi State 3 weeks later, play Northern Illinois and scored 13. And then we saw them later in the season play Akron and lost that. Like it just, there are different levels to it. So I think Northern Illinois always going to have a good defense. And I think that's it right now. Western Michigan, Central, Bowling Green, Eastern Michigan. I think right now they're in the not this year but soon tier. Bowling Green had an incredible roster turnover. You've got the Hayden Wolf era is over at Western Michigan. Eastern Michigan, you're ushering in Noah Kim, a new quarterback, new defensive players. Like, there's a lot of different things going on. And half of these teams in this tier are replacing coaches too, and I think that's something else that you need to keep an eye on. New schemes, new wrinkles, new little bit of everything. So you don't really know. That's why they could move up. I don't see them moving up, with the exception of, again, Northern Illinois, going to play with a chip on their shoulder, try to win a championship on their way out of the league.
absolutely.
So kind of rounding out the conference's teams as a whole, I guess, we're looking at the bottom four right here: Kent State, UMass, Akron, Ball State. What would you kind of gauge as realistic expectations for these programs for this season?
Find somewhere to improve. And I say that with a great deal of care, because these are programs that are falling on hard times. Ball State, most recently, I would argue, is the most successful program. They won the MAC in 2020. Finished 7-1, finished in the top.
That feels like an eternity ago.
Right. No, and that was 5 years ago. Kent State was in the championship game the year after. Finished that year 7-7. Like, this is not great football right here where it's at. And that's okay. I think right now UMass, they're the kind of the hungry kids, the new kids on the block. They're hungry. They're like, we want to show that we belong here. So they're looking to hunt down some wins. And the winnable games are going to be, funny enough, the other three teams in this tier. I think they actually get Kent State and Akron this year. So those are both very winnable games for UMass, just as UMass is a winnable game for both Kent State and Akron. So that's kind of a three-headed trifecta win monster between the three of them. Ball State, I think their challenges are different. Kent State, you're going through a coaching change where, well, the last coach dealt with some personal issues that absolutely affected his coaching. Akron, they're dealing with the APR issues, so you got to get guys excited to compete when there's nothing you're competing for.
Mm-hmm.
UMass, you're the new kid on the block. You're just trying to prove something to people. Ball State, you've won games you have no business winning the last couple years. You should not have beat Northern Illinois last year. Just shouldn't have happened. You really shouldn't have beat them the times you have in recent memory, but you figured it out. I think they're the most complete team of the four here. You got Kyle Kelly coming back for the Cardinals, who is the presumptive starter at quarterback, and they're going to play him mostly on the offensive side of the ball, where really he belongs. I think he's the most dynamic player for Ball State right now. Quan Magwood is coming back. He's going to be a great receiver for Kyle Kelly. So this is a team that I think has a lot of potential. They have the most to prove, I think, because they have the most in terms of talent available at their disposal, with a coach who's proven successful in recent history. So that's really my answer. I think Ball State is going to be your team to kind of watch, but it's going to be ugly here in the bottom four.
And you just mentioned talking talent. Perhaps my favorite question number 5 of this whole 6-pack that we packed in for you. Alex, let the people know who are your personal top 5 most impactful offensive and then 5 defensive players that our listeners need to know heading into Maction 2025.
Defensive players. We'll start with defense first. Red Murdoch from Buffalo, and then you've got Kobe Stewart from Buffalo. These guys are going to be an incredible tandem for the Bulls this year. I'm very excited for both of them. I think if his tackles stay up, Red Murdoch has a real shot at defensive MVP this year, or defensive player of the year. I really like what he brings to the table. He's going to be great. Same with Stewart, Kobe Stewart. This is a guy who really could have an unbelievable breakout year this year. He's going to be a guy that you're going to almost have to double team, especially in league play. He's fast, he's big, and once he gets ahead of steam, watch out. So I really like him. Moving on to Emmanuel McNeil-Warren in the backfield for the Rockets. This is a guy that people are already talking about for the NFL draft, saying he's an NFL draft prospect. He and Avery Smith both kind of are. And I really think that he is he's got a lot of potential. Fun fact, he actually has a 90 overall in the new NCAA football game. And that makes him I think he's tied for the highest in the league for overall in the MAC. So fun little tidbit for you guys. So I really like Emmanuel McNeil-Warren. And then Corbin Hondrew from Miami. Can't speak enough about him and what he's been able to do. He's gonna be stepping up into a leadership role. And I think that he has the opportunity to really do that and to do that well. Jelani Williams from Northern Illinois is my last defensive player. I really think that, honestly, he's probably their best defensive player coming into this season, and might be their best player overall coming into this season. I mean, he incredibly high motor. Kid is not afraid to hit people and not afraid to let you know you've been hit by him. So just another guy you need to watch out for. I think he's already getting some NFL attention. There's talks about him going in the draft. He is so good at getting to the quarterback and pressuring them, and now to kind of be part of a really great defense. Watch out for him as well. Kind of the offensive side, I feel like we've talked about a couple of these guys already. DeQuan Finn, Tucker Gleason, both of them are going to be towards the top of the conference in just being great quarterbacks. In fact, I would love to see it. I don't know that it'll happen, but I'd love to see Toledo versus Miami in the championship, just for the guy who replaced the guy who left, who's now on the other. Like the storylines that you could make with that would just be incredible. Gleason had a lot of touchdowns last year, had a lot of great moments, tough as nails. When he gets hurt, he's really hurt. He's not just BSing you. DeQuan Finn, high motor, can run for 1 billion years and then like throw a crazy pass. So watch out for him. Al-J Henderson, the Buffalo running back, again, over 1,000 yards a year ago. He's going to be behind hopefully an improved line with a little bit better quarterback play to kind of give him an opportunity to break out a little bit more. If I could very easily see him doing 150 yards a game pretty consistently this year with a good offensive line. And I think that they will be improved. They just need to figure out the depth issue. And then Parker Navarro, you guys have mentioned him. I won't dive into him too much. But Parker Navarro, I like him a lot. He's a good kid. He gets to keep his offensive coordinator, who's now his head coach. And that only spells positive possibilities. And then last but not least, Trayvon Rudolph, the rare in-conference transfer for a skill position. This one is very intriguing to me because you're going to get Junior Vandeross, who is incredibly speedy on the other side. And then you get Trip Chainham in the backfield for this really strong Toledo offense. And then you got Tucker Gleason throwing you the ball. No disrespect to Josh Holst. Tucker Gleason is a better quarterback, and Trayvon Rudolph is going to have more opportunities to get the ball from a much more talented quarterback. So those are my 5 for the offensive side as well.
To kind of wrap up our conversation here, Alex, kind of, I guess, rewinding almost to the contender tier of this conference, let's talk about everyone's favorite conversation, the college football playoff. That was sarcastic, and everyone hates the playoff. But looking at that contender tier, right, like we're looking at 4 teams that certainly have the out-of-conference ammunition to make a case to be a playoff contender in 2025 should the cards break right for them and they go 12-0, or even in some teams' cases 11-1. Like if you sit here and tell me that Ohio goes 11-1 this year and they beat Ohio State and they lose a weird MAC game, I mean, that should still be a playoff team. Who do you think has the best chance of that contender tier? And again, to refresh everyone's memories, we're talking Ohio, Toledo, Miami, and Buffalo to crash the dance and be the G5 representative in the 2025 college football playoff.
I think Toledo and Buffalo have the talent to have really successful seasons. Both of them have quality non-conference resume building, four-game stretches. Toledo's is interesting to me. You start this season at Kentucky, so you win a game against an SEC team on the road, kick off the year. Automatically, you're going to start getting looks in the polls. Then you come home, you win a revenge game against Western Kentucky, and then you wrap that up with a game against Morgan State. So you have the possibility to start the season 3-0. The thing that concerns me with Toledo, that Oregon State game kind of sandwiched in the middle of the conference slate, that to me is a little scary. I think when you kind of look at what they have, you get Toledo to start 3-0. You move through conference play. Let's say Toledo's 6-0, 7-0. They go out. They have to travel out to Pullman, Washington. That is a tough trip in the middle of your conference slate. It's on the West Coast. There's a lot of elements to this that aren't in Toledo's favor. If you find a win there, you've now knocked off, let's make the argument, a P4 program in Kentucky, two quality G6 programs in Oregon State and Western Kentucky. You would be hard-pressed, in my opinion, to say, oh, Toledo lost a funky MAC game somewhere, but then won the MAC title and then finished 12-1. You'd be hard-pressed to tell me that they didn't have a good shot at that bid if other teams with similar resumes popped up. Like if a Liberty popped up with a 12-1, or let's say a Boise State went 11-2. Like, I think Toledo would earn that nod because you got to look at not just who they played, but who they beat. And I think that's fair. I also think for Buffalo, Buffalo won 9 games last year. They had no business winning 9 games last year. Now, there's some changes, but Pete Lembeau is a good coach. Pete Lembo knows football, and I think there's an opportunity for Buffalo to. I would say Buffalo is my sleeper pick. Toledo is definitely more my. Hey, I think they have a real shot at doing this based off of the schedule, based off of the talent. But I wouldn't be surprised if Buffalo maybe dropped a game early. I have them personally going 7-5, 8-4. But if they string together a few wins and kind of get the machine rolling pretty quickly, Buffalo could be a really, really fun team to watch represent the group of 5 in the college football playoffs.
I mean, the MAC has a nice opening week chance for statements with OU at Rutgers, Buffalo at Minnesota, and then who does Miami have?
Wisconsin.
Wisconsin.
Yeah.
You beat those 3, or can you get 2 of those 3? Fantastic. And I think as much as I want OU to go 2-1 in their 3, or even, I mean, it would pain me if they beat Ohio State, but they went 3-0. It's highly unlikely given everything that they lost. But if you look at OU's schedule, if you can swing 2-1 out of those first 3 and then run the MAC, they're staring down a barrel of a good-looking playoff matchup because you've gotten Rutgers, you beat them on the road, you took West Virginia at home. If you can look respectable against Ohio State and then run the MAC, you got to figure it out some. You lost a lot. You talked about the attrition, coaching change, but you keep consistent on offense, and Bangura's back. Parco Navarro's legs are going to give them a chance no matter where they are. I think it's really intriguing for the Bobcats for my own personal interest for those first 3 weeks there. And when we do our Pick'em show that week, I'm going to need the quad box up because there's too many damn interesting MAC games on the opening night that I don't want to miss them, that they could upset some Big Ten brethren that we cover here.
Well, and I think it's really interesting. Buffalo opens at Minnesota. But then you look at the rest of their schedule. Let's say you drop that game at Minnesota. Let's say it's a 3-point game, 4-point game. You've got very winnable games 3 straight weeks before you welcome UConn to Buffalo. St. Francis, you're at Kent State, who, let's be honest, not going to be that competitive in week 3. Then you've got Troy. You get Troy at home. And then you get UConn at home. And then Eastern Michigan at home. That is a fun 3-game stretch. Troy has every reason in the world to hate Buffalo, specifically their women's basketball team. They started and finished their season with wins over Troy, regular season, first game of the year, and then they lost to them in the WNIT championship. Troy hates Buffalo. Buffalo has every motive to continue this streak over Troy and now make it across multiple sports. So I feel like that one could be a lot of fun. And then UConn is a big test. UConn kind of perceived as that weird Power 4 G5, not really sure where they're at, kind of independent. But I'm really excited about what Buffalo could do. They can find the right wins at this time. Buffalo could easily start the season 2-3.
Mm-hmm.
But I also think they could just as easily start the season 4-1.
Maybe 5-0. Ryan and I, the game we each had on last year for the live show, first week was Minnesota, North Carolina, and they started extremely slow. I don't believe Darius Taylor played in that game, but they started extremely slow. And you're again ushering a new quarterback for Minnesota. You're ushering in another defensive coordinator. Minnesota is relatively unknown at wide receiver. Defensive line took a hit. Buffalo's got, I think, maybe the best chance of week 1 to nip somebody if they're ready. And then the easiest thing in the world, right, is to have all offseason prepare for your week 1 opponent. But if Buffalo can hit them fast, Minnesota might be in trouble right away.
For sure.
All right, Alex, before we let you get out of here tonight, sir, please let our listeners know where they can find you, your work, and what you guys are working on cooking up here over these next couple weeks as we are closing in on football season.
Yeah, no, first off, thank you guys, as always, for having me on. Truly, always a pleasure to talk Maction with fellow ball knowers, as the kids say. So thank you guys for the work you guys do and the work you continue to put out. It doesn't go unnoticed, and you guys do an excellent job.
Thank you.
But yeah, anybody who wants to check out what we've got going on, You can find us pretty much on any social media platform. The Mac Sports Connection, Twitter, or X now, I guess. Blue Sky, Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, YouTube. You can find us on all those places. You can also listen to us at the Mac Sports Connection podcast on really any podcast platform, including Spotify, Apple, Google, Amazon. We also have our partnership with Lairfield, where we are on the varsity app
Nice.
put on by Lairfield. So you can download that and listen for free through their mobile app. Cool thing about that app is you can also listen to all your favorite colleges and their live audio calls for various sporting events. So definitely check that out. And then I know you mentioned a question from a listener, so I'll just share with you guys. Still slowly chipping away on mobile Maction. Trying to, I parsed it down a little bit. There were going to be a lot of elements that I want to add that will be added down the road in updates. But right now I'm parsing it back to standing scores, schedules, and then I had something else on there. And then sports. So you could pick which sports you want to follow. And right now it's just going to be easiest to present that. But eventually I'm going to have the places to eat in each Mac school or in each Mac city. Just different interactive features to make it more of a fan experience app than just a rip-off of ESPN. I want to give this something that you guys don't rely on ESPN to find out what Buffalo women's volleyball is doing. I want you to be able to look up Miami field hockey on this app and say, oh, hey, they're on a 4-game win streak, and they take on UMass next week. I want you to be able to use it's going to be a truly all-in-one app, your one-stop shop for all things Maction, and it'll be called Mobile Maction. That's as simple as I can make it. But still working on that, hoping to have something available for people mid-football season, maybe towards the end. Issue is we're testing APIs, trying to get APIs to populate. When there's nothing happening, no sports happening, really hard to test an API that you rely on scores to kick information out to you. So working on that, and I will share updates on social media once I have them. But it's a work in progress, a labor of love, and I'm excited to get it done.
Fantastic.
Well, sir, we appreciate you once again joining us this evening to spread the good word about the most exciting conference in college football, the MAC. And everyone, thank you for joining us this evening, listening to us. We will be back with you guys tomorrow night. We are talking the Iowa Hawkeyes. That's all. That's all I got. For Clinton and Alex, I'm Ryan. Thanks, everyone, for joining us. We'll be back with you tomorrow night.
See you guys.